Warm welcome to a virtual Berlin meeting. Hello, Ariel.
Hello, thank you for inviting me here.
You are a developmental psychologist studying at the University of Chicago, which is your home university. You're very much in focusing on family economics. And as we are today talking and thinking about digitalization, we really much would like to know more about your research on strengthening parental engagement and your thoughts on how digitalization fits into that. Can you share us a little bit of your thoughts on this?
Absolutely. So I can say that our interest in this question started from a couple of observations. And I should say these observations are based in the US. I don't think they would be altogether different in a Western European country, but certainly they would be different in other more different contexts. But we had two observations. One is that technology is widespread in families. So smartphones, tablets, and games and apps and so forth are something almost every family in the US is familiar with, no matter their family background. So rich and low income families alike are widely using technology. The second observation we had is that we found it sort of perplexing that, for example, the American Academy of Pediatrics or the big boards that send out their strong signal about what's appropriate for young children have a very strong prohibition against what they call screen time for young kids. And it seemed to us like a very blanket prohibition, sort of it's bad, it's almost always bad. and as a parent, you should not let your child have any time on screens. We just really wanted to dig into that because we thought, technology, which by definition is going to live on a screen, and apps that are by definition going to be on a phone or a tablet, can be designed to be very educational and can be designed to support children's learning and can be designed to be as effective as the most effective tutor, possibly more effective even than parents in some instances, that we can think about and then I can talk about later. And it seemed to us that the right question to ask was, what kind of screen time? Not screen time or not. So that's how we got started on this question, to try to understand whether if we provided families with high quality digital content, a digital library, for example, that lives on a tablet, a set of high quality math apps that live on a phone or a tablet, would that be something that would be both appealing to families and would boost children's skills in literacy and math? Because for us, the big problem we're trying to solve is the low level of parent engagement in children's learning that we often see in the US, particularly in economically disadvantaged families. We're looking for tools that boost parent-child engagement or that go right to the child and the child learns on his or her own, maybe with the parent, maybe not. That's how we got started on this big question.
This is wonderful. I remember when we initially met, you brought with you a very recent study on how you would actually have experiments with parents. So you would have some sort of treatment group and control group. So in order to actually find effects of your intervention, I just remember something also with push messages. Can you
Yeah,
remind me of that
exactly.
again?
So you have a great memory. Thank you. That's exactly what we do. So our work here in Chicago is mostly takes the form of a randomized controlled trial, an experiment, as you say, where we randomly assign some families to treatment and others to control, because of course we are really interested in knowing what is the causal impact of providing some tool on an outcome like parent engagement or children's skills. So we try to recruit maybe 1,000 families for any given study, and then we will recruit them and enroll them, and then we will randomly assign them to the different treatment groups or to a control group. And in that first study, I think you may be remembering a study called PACT, or
The pact, yeah.
PACT, Parents and Children Together, which we've now published in the Journal of Human Resources, if everyone wants to look it up and read it. For that study, we created a digital library that lived on a tablet. And that digital library was loaded with over 200 books. So I should also say that most of our work is done with preschool age children. So in the US, that's children between about 4 or 5 years old before they go to formal kindergarten at age.
Okay, kindergarten is then at age 5 or 6?
Yes, kindergarten is at age 5. Most children will turn 6 over the course of that kindergarten year, but you enroll, in the fall when you are 5. And so preschool, you're 3 and 4, and you're turning 5, at some point over that second preschool year. So we had a digital library that we loaded onto a tablet. And in our experiment, we gave everybody the tablet. So the treatment and control group alike got the tablet with the digital library. But the treatment group, as you correctly remember, got a number of weekly push messages that were very carefully designed to encourage parents, mostly it's mothers, to actually spend time with their child reading those books on the digital library. And so what we were testing was whether what does reading look like if you just give someone the tablet versus you give someone the tablet and then every week they get approximately 4 push messages doing a variety of things, asking parents to think about setting a goal for reading in the week ahead, reminding parents to do the reading for the goal they had set, giving parents feedback on the amount of time they actually did spend and whether it was close or not to the goal that they set. And then push messages that sort of send a digital badge or a reward that congratulate parents when they meet their goals or when they have a substantial number of reading minutes. So that study, to be clear, was not designed to test whether the tablet alone is superior to business as usual, which in a household may also include a tablet or may just include books. It was designed to test whether behavioral messages combined with the digital library boost reading more than just we wanted to make sure that the materials were equivalent in the treatment and control so that both had access to the digital library. But we also have a guiding hypothesis that simply giving parents information or materials is also often not enough.
What was your experience with how parents actually took in these messages?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. So we are always in our messaging, which again is another way of harnessing technology, by the way, because it's a very efficient and easy and simple way to communicate with parents and to send
and cheap, right? Also
very cheap, very cheap. So we are very careful not ever to send messages to parents that say things like, this is what you should do, or good parents do this, or if you don't do this, you're not a good parent. Rather, we start with the idea that we already assume this is something you want to do, and we're here to help you actually do it. And we don't know if that's the case for everything, but we were pretty certain from our own survey research and many other studies that parents do want to read with their preschool children. I mean, if dozens of surveys that ask parents, do you enjoy reading, and do you know that it's important to read? And 99% of parents will say yes, And then you say, well, I mean, you can sort of ask the hypothetical question, well, why aren't you doing it then? And then you get to this so-called intention action gap. I mean, there's lots of things we want to do and we know we should do and we enjoy doing when we do them, and yet we don't do. And so the messaging is really designed to just encourage people to do the thing we were pretty confident they already wanted to do. So we have very good feedback from parents. I mean, one test of how much people enjoy being in our program is whether they drop out or whether they send us stop. And almost nobody does. And so we can observe. I mean, if they found this unpleasant or insulting, they just stop. And that's easy to leave. It's anonymous. You just leave and quit, and they don't. So.
Oh, wonderful. And I'm curious, of course, what were the results on the kids? You probably
Okay, so I have two sets of results to tell you, and I think they complement one another. So in the PACT study, as you recall, we got a very large increase in reading time from the treatment group. Compared to just giving the tablet alone. And we, took from that our behavioral messaging was very successful in boosting reading time. We had a lot of different types of behavioral messaging, so it was not clear which one might have been driving. Was it goal setting? Was it feedback? Was it reminders? Was
it the badge in the end?
Or the badge? I mean, we had a digital bear that danced across the screen.
Probably the bear.
Very, very cute. So we couldn't unpack that because those were bundled together in the treatment, but we got a quite large impact on reading time. Okay, so we published that paper. We were super excited, but the obvious next question is, well, what about literacy test scores? And we hadn't done that in the first study because it was a smaller proof of concept study. So we did another larger scale randomized control trial with the very same digital library, the same tablet setup, and we unbundled some of the treatments as well. We separated the goal setting from the reminders. We didn't have the badge anymore. And we measured reading time and we measured kids' literacy skills. I should point out that we have a really terrific measure of reading time on the tablet because the digital library has basically a timestamp. So when a parent opens the digital library, it actually begins a video and an audio recording of the book reading session. So our outcome is the number of minutes that those video sessions accumulate to over the course of the intervention. We can also actually look at the videos to confirm that it is indeed the parent and the child reading together. So we redid this study, and here's what we found. We almost perfectly replicated PACT for the reading time. I mean, the results look almost identical, that we boosted reading time with the behavioral messaging. In particular, it was messages designed, so sort of the goal setting, getting parents to kind of focus on the future and think about setting a goal and putting in the time this week to meet your goal. That boosted reading time substantially, but so too, as it turns out, did just giving kid the tablet. So here, unlike PACT, where the bundle of behavioral treatment versus the tablet alone was very effective, here we find that both the tablet and the goal setting group increased their reading, but the goal setting group increased their reading significantly more. Okay. Okay. So if we had just stopped there, we would have said, oh, this just perfectly replicates PACT, where now that's really great when that happens. But we had, as I said, now we have the literacy test scores, which, by the way, we do test all the children. We meet them at their preschool and test them all individually. It's quite intense to
It's
do all that.
intense, yeah.
Very intense, and I could tell a long story about how this all was getting done, and then COVID hit in
Oh
the
no.
US, and the preschools closed right in the middle of our study.
Oh no.
And we had to do a lot of remote testing and get the equipment to families at their homes and test the kids like you and I are right now over
Wow.
Teams or a Zoom call. And it was very taxing. We
Oh
did
yeah, I
it,
can imagine.
but we ended up with a smaller sample than we had hoped. Anyway, that's a side story.
That's a
But
side
back to the
story,
main
but
story. Just, the things that happen when you are doing research in the field are varied and unpredictable.
especially in a pandemic, yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so anyway, we did manage to test a reasonable number of kids and get their literacy test scores. And here's what we found. So I told you that the goal setting group had a greater number of reading minutes than the tablet alone with no messaging. However, they had no greater increase in kids' literacy test scores.
Okay.
So this is super interesting because it says that our theory of just boosting engagement to translate into higher test scores might not be correct. I mean, you ask yourself, well, you got them to read more minutes. Why didn't their kids' literacy test scores? How is it that at the end, the tablet and the goal setting group had the same test score? And we got to thinking, well, now the messaging really matters, and what the quality of the parent-child engagement in this case really matters. So you can read a book with your child in many different ways.
Of course.
You can read to them while you're also looking at your phone yourself, or thinking about something else, or while your child is distracted or tired. And clearly, in order to produce a gain in literacy skills, the quality of that book reading has to be of a particular sort. And we began thinking, well, basically you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it. I mean, I can nudge you with
But I
these,
can't make you drink it, force
but
it into you.
I can't with these kinds of messages make you necessarily do it with enthusiasm or quality. And indeed, I told you, I mentioned that the reading digital library had a timestamp. So we can actually know when the reading is happening. And what we found out is that in that goal setting group, there was a lot more reading that was happening later at night. Like, remember, these are 3 and 4-year-olds, reading that was happening after 9 o'clock, even 10 o'clock at night. So
not sure about the bedtime in the US, but in Germany, the kids are in bed by then, usually.
yeah, exactly. It's, it should mostly be the same here. So that's a pretty interesting flag that maybe makes you think these parents are really trying to get their minutes in because you are messaging them, get your minutes in, get your minutes in. So they're doing it, but it's not efficient, and it's not translating into, more is not translating into better outcomes. So this was our latest finding, and it's very interesting to us because it's making us think a lot about motivation. And why parents, how do you harness parents' intrinsic motivation as opposed to you're setting up this external goal and maybe in fact you are frustrating them or maybe you're displacing an intrinsic motivation with an extrinsic one, and there's a huge field which suggests that that's a really terrible thing to do. You want to harness, the motivations people already have. So that's one conclusion. The second conclusion we draw is that, there may be some merit in just providing the tablet and the digital material and letting kids and parents use it when they want, or not nudging or nagging them to do it. And that's something we're still figuring out. We have another study that's studying math and math apps, which I'm happy to talk about. But one idea we're thinking of is that, as I mentioned at the beginning, technology can be a complement to parent engagement, meaning it can facilitate it, it can go together, it can reduce frictions. If you have a tablet that's appealing, a digital library with a infinite number of books, that's fun, math apps that are really high quality. But technology can also, I think, substitute for parents. Not always. I mean, technology can't comfort a crying child or provide
not yet.
But technology can do math or even, book reading with a child to substitute when a parent, him or herself, is tired or stressed or just, doesn't want to do it at this moment. So these are the kind of things we're thinking about, which again takes us back to, when is technology good? When does it help parents? How does it help parents? And what's the best way to help parents use technology in their home?
Ariel, thank you so much for continuing on these questions, which are very interesting to us. Also, it's a different childhood education setting in Germany, of course, to the US, but I see many parallel streams and many parallel questions. And thank you. We will definitely follow on your research, and we are very excited to see the results next year. Thank you very much for joining us today, and talk to you soon.